Tuesday night hoops in the Big Ten, Oregon, Indiana. One team squarely in the NCAA tournament. One team squarely sure of absolutely nothing with regards to its basketball program. Jacob Goins, Locked On Hoosiers. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Ducks. So we cross over for the final segment of today's show, Jacob, because our teams shall square off tonight at Matthew Knight Arena, senior night. Hoosiers, Ducks, Hardwood, because that's what the Big Ten brings us when Oregon's, part of that conference. It's still strange to me. It's still odd. But these teams are weird for different reasons. Oregon's weird because they lost 5 straight games. We were firing Dana Altman in certain corners of the internet, and now he has won 5 in a row, going to make it 6. I don't know. You make of that whatever you want. Mike Woodson won't coach for Indiana next year, but they're suddenly a bubble team, according to Joe Lunardi. So
heck, some people have us off the bubble. We're flat in the tournament. It's a miracle.
Yeah, it certainly is. Between these two teams, Jacob, I think it's pretty clear Indiana needs this win more than Oregon does. I would very much like for Oregon to win the game. Of course, winning's better than losing. I would love for Oregon to be a 4 seed rather than a 5 seed. I think your first round game is significantly less dangerous. If you get there, beating Indiana would help on the march to get there, but Indiana needs this more than Oregon does.
There's no doubt. I mean, we're looking for one more quad 1 win. This is our last quad 1 opportunity. We have a home game against Ohio State on Saturday. While they're a good team, with that being at home, it's technically quad 2 as of now. I expect it to stay that way. So our resume is not great, but as of late, it's much better. And we are hoping for a little bit of recency bias to get Indiana into the tournament thanks to wins over Michigan State and Purdue. If you could top that with a quad 1 opportunity against Oregon on the road, there would be almost no way to leave Indiana out, no matter what happens on Saturday against the Buckeyes and whatever happens in the Big Ten tournament for whatever that's worth. I don't think it's much, but that's why you have to win a game like this to where you leave almost no doubt for this Hoosiers team who was left for dead off the bubble, not even in consideration. Then the Woodson news comes out and hey, all of a sudden it's like we're a good basketball team again. It's a miracle. It's unbelievable, Spencer. So yes, Indiana needs this win a lot more than Oregon does.
Yeah, and it's just so strange how it's playing out right now. Like, Mike Woodson is a lame duck head coach. He knows it. His team knows it. And look, sometimes that can free you up to start playing good basketball and just let loose. Say, well, who cares if it's all for whatever this run will wind up being. But let's talk about the game itself, because Oregon has kind of flipped the switch. I won't say entirely. I think they flipped it like 3/4 of the way up the light panel there. Because offensively, they have been an incredibly consistent team. Defensively, they've been better. But that's kind of where, the game gets decided for Oregon in the last couple of weeks. You look at their point totals, even going back to the 5-game losing skid. They put up 76 at Michigan. They had a 50-point first half at Michigan State and lost both of those games. And those were big opportunities, of course. But the Wisconsin game is where it all kind of came together. And where everyone, I think, on the Oregon side of things, tuned back in, was going, "Oh, okay. So are we back? Are we Final Four?" Yeah. Like you just really don't know. But defensively, for Indiana, if you don't have the answers against this Oregon team right now, they are deep and they're shooting the ball really well.
Well, that's the problem, is Indiana is very susceptible to giving up a lot of points in terms of shooting from the outside, because Indiana's man defense has not been great this year. We've started to play some more zone, and it got us in trouble early because our communication was terrible. And you know this, when the ball moves, the zone moves. And if the zone doesn't move, you got open shooters. But Indiana started to figure it out a little bit, and offensively and defensively, we've gone away from a 2-big system. We brought in Oumar Ballo from the transfer portal. You had Malik Renew come back. It was a no-brainer. Play 2 big guys and have one of the best front courts in all of college basketball. That just didn't work. And here recently, we've gone away from it. We said, to heck with that. Oumar Ballo, sit on the bench. Malik Renew, have yourself a day. And that's exactly what he's been doing. And I think it frees up Indiana offensively. And on the defensive side, it allows us to get out to shooters more and stay in front of the basketball. And so, look, we're on the road, but we beat Michigan State on the road. And we've hung with a bunch of good teams on the road. I'm not sure how we perform in this sort of environment. I don't think Washington was all that big of a test. We handled business there. And so I am curious to see if Oregon gets hot, if they go on a run, can Indiana respond? Because we're shooting pretty well as of late, but it's on the road in a brand new gym. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and Oregon shooting has been pretty well spread out. You know, Jackson Shellstad, preseason All Big Ten selection, has been living up to that billing really all year long. He's been great down the stretch. He found his three-point shot after really struggling in the non-conference slate from beyond the arc. But Keyshawn Barthelemy, instant offense guy. Nate Bittle, reigning Big Ten Player of the Week after they went to Wisconsin, pulled the upset. He was great in that game, and Oregon had some other good performances as well. But you know, defensively is where Oregon has been up and down, inconsistent, which is strange. That's not historically what Dane Altman teams have been, but that's what they clearly are now. This is an offensive team that when they play defense well is going to win the basketball game far more often than not. But, you know, that's where the Hoosiers, I think, have to be able to exploit Oregon is they have had defensive lapses. They have had, you know, in their matchup zone defense, they don't always settle in or find the right level of intensity until the second half. Particularly early in games, Oregon has not been a great defensive team.
And look, Indiana, I guess over the season has typically gotten off to slower starts offensively, but it literally all starts on the defensive side of the floor. If Indiana is communicating, getting stops, and limiting possessions, or at least limiting shots per possession, then Indiana's got a chance. It's when you give a team like Oregon second, third, fourth opportunities per possession. Oregon's too good, man. They will knock down those types of shots, and Indiana can't outscore anybody. They can't run and play in the 80s and 90s. We're just not built for that. We want to be 60s and 70s. It's gross basketball. I get it. But that's where Indiana wins games. And so if Malik Reneau can stay out of foul trouble, if the guards can step up, it's been a shift in the guards as well. It's been more Anthony Leal, Trey Galloway rather than Miles Rice. Cannon Carlisle hasn't sniffed the floor. And you do have right now, too, Luke Goody, who is our best three-point shooter, the Illinois transfer, who is starting to come into his own. And a guy in Mackenzie Mbako, who was a sophomore this year that we thought was going to have a surge, just hasn't happened. So it's been a complete shift in the starting five, a complete shift in the way this team plays, and somehow it's led to more wins and making the NCAA tournament. If we do those things in this game tonight against Oregon, I think we have a really good shot.
I think the key for Oregon is keep Indiana under 75 points. I think if they do that, they have an excellent chance to win. But, you know, for Indiana, I think their formula is to look back at the Purdue game. Go watch that tape. And that was, you know, in the midst of, that was, I think, starting Oregon's 5-game losing skid that preceded this 5-game winning streak that they're on right now. Purdue came to Matthew Knight Arena and just took away everything Oregon wanted to do on offense. It was a low-scoring, slugfest battle. Felt kind of old-school Oregon basketball, but that's not what this team is really built to do. And look, they love to shoot the three, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not as great. But if you're Indiana, I think the biggest key for the Hoosiers in this game, Jacob, you take away Oregon's inside scoring, which isn't that big, and you put the pressure on the three-point shooters. I don't think that's where they are at their best. I think when they get their three-point shots from an inside outlook is when they are successful offensively, and I think a lot of coaches will tell you, even three-point shooting heavy teams, that's how they want to get looks from beyond the arc. I think if they can push around Nate Bittle, not allow Brandon Angel to get buckets, or KJ Evans off the bench, or whoever else, TJ Bamba, you know, can drive the basketball really well. Yes, Jacob, he is still around in college basketball.
Yeah, I know.
He and Oumar Ballo, legends of the Pac-12, RIP, are battling in this game because that's the way that college sports goes nowadays. But I think if you're Indiana, you pack the paint and say, hey, Oregon, are you going to go make 13 threes or whatever it was a couple of games ago? If you do, hat tip, I guess. But I think Oregon's offense is at its best when it's balanced.
And then offensively for Indiana, I'm telling you right now, if Oregon wants to stop the Hoosiers, find Malik Reneau and throw a double at him and force the basketball out of his hands. Make somebody else beat you. This guy went to the hospital, got on the plane, helped this team smack around Washington, and he's playing some of his best basketball right now. Had some illness. He's fine. But Indiana's going to dump it down to him time and time again. If the Hoosiers have 40-plus paint points in this game, don't be surprised, because if it ain't broke, they're not going to fix it. It's Mike Woodson. Let's be real. Indiana's going to do one thing and one thing only. They're going to score in the paint. So for Oregon, stop Malik Renew. If you do, you got a good chance.
Yeah, and that comes down to two guys who are elite shot blockers, and Nate Bittle and KJ Evans. Bittle, though, against Ballo, I think that's the most interesting matchup in this game because Bittle is taller. He's a little bit skinnier. This is not N'Faly Dante. This is a guy who is a great shot blocker, a good defender, but individually, he can get pushed around a little bit. And Ballo is a big, thick, strong guy. I think if Bittle holds his own at that end of the floor, I think Oregon has got a really, really good chance.